Welcome to another GridDB video. This one is going to be showing you the basics of using GridDB with Grafana. So briefly we'll just go over installing Grafana on your CentOS machine, and then we'll go over how we can use our Grafana Json Connector Python application that we wrote to query our GridDB data with Grafana to display some nice charts of our data. Okay, let's just get started. Okay, so as mentioned, first thing is going to be installing Grafana itself. We're going to install the open source version. You can find very nice instructions on the Grafana website itself, but we'll also just show you here. So basically, we created a file called Grafana .repo in our yum repos directory, and when you add the proper information in there, your yum repo system will know to grab the file named here. So now if you do sudo yum install Grafana, it'll work now because of that file. Obviously I already have it installed, so this will do nothing, I assume. Okay, perfect. So it really is that easy. And then from there you just kind of start it up using the service features of your OS. So for example, you would do this, and this will enable the Grafana server service. So I already did that. So if you do sudo system stl service, actually no, status Grafana. So if I do that, it shows, yep, active and running. Perfect. So that's done and easy to go. Okay, so as mentioned, we showed the server was up and running. So you can also verify by going to the IP address of your server and go to port 3000. So I will show you what that looks like. You go here and it'll have a nice splash page. Your credentials will be admin, password will be admin. You log in the first time, it'll make you change your password because admin is not very secure, as you probably guessed. And then you're in here. So next step will be for us to set up the GridDB Grafana Json connector. So we'll go back into our server. Okay, so our GridDB Json connector is, it's basically just Python code that we wrote. It's a Flask app. So this app will handle the querying of our GridDB database to display that information inside our Grafana instance. So you can download our JSON connector code from the description down below. So some few caveats, just we made the connector as simple as we could. So for now it can only query time series containers, which, I mean, it's Grafana, so most likely that's what you need anyway. But the other thing is the time series containers key, it must be timestamp. So it can't be time or some other thing. It has to be timestamp. Obviously you can go in and edit the code yourself, but that's a different story. So okay, so once you get that downloaded from our blog, you can enter that directory, and it's this app.py file. So if you just run it in the as a background instance, it'll run on port 3003. So you just run that. Yep, that's basically it. Okay, so our Python Flask app is running on port 3003. Now we have to install a JSON data source plugin for our Grafana. So Grafana has a CLI tool you can use. So you can just install it directly from the command line. You would run this command, and it'll install properly. And then of course you just need to restart your Grafana instance. Once it restarts, now your Grafana instance can take in JSON as a data source. So let's take a look at how we would do that. Okay, so let's go into our Grafana instance and let's create a data source. So let's do that. You would scroll down to JSON. I think you can also just search here, maybe. Yeah, so just here. So as mentioned, the name doesn't matter, we just JSON for. As mentioned, our Flask Python app is running on port 3003. So the URL will be, of course, localhost 3003. And that's it. So you do save and test and hope that it says data source is working, which it does. So now we need to create a dashboard, add a query. So the query will be it's written in our Python code. That's why we say that the time series key must be timestamped, because that's what our default Python code is asking for. Okay, so here in metric, you first do the container name, colon, and then the column. So I have a container name readings. This is from another project, and then I have two columns that have data. So let's try probe1. Press enter, and so now this is showing that data. So last 6 hours is incorrect, so we can go here. And so this is actually the only time that there's valuable data is within this slice. So you can just hover here and kind of show that, and it shows you a much better view of what's happening with your data. And if you're curious about what this is probe1 is a thermometer which was inserted inside a piece of beef short rib. So it started off with fridge temperature at 41 degrees, and then we had it in the barbecue pit for about 4 hours or so, and the temperature slowly rose until we reached the desired temperature of 203 degrees, and from there we removed it from the pit and let it cool on our kitchen counter, so it stayed at 195 for a bit. But that data is irrelevant. So, but basically you can see that the data that is stored within our GridDB database is able to be displayed very nicely here on. Okay, now, and just for fun, let's take a look at another data set we have within this database. So this one, as mentioned, is probe1, which is checking the internal temperature of whatever we're cooking. But we also had probe2, which is checking the temperature within the pit itself. So in this case, the barbecue pit. So here you can see it started off at 68, which is outside temperature in California. And then once we put it inside the pit, it was already going for a bit, 231. We kind of had too many burners on, so it got a little bit high on us. We were kind of neglectful there, and then we kind of realized we need to bring that heat down. And we kind of kept it around this temperature for a lot longer. But let's say we wanted to make markings. So there's actually a feature called Annotations. So these annotations, so we can put them based on a query we can make. So let me just show you what I mean here. So you go here to Annotations, and we do this add annotation query. The data source is a JSON. Then the query is whatever you want. So for example, we will do readings probe2 if the temperature is greater than 275 or so. Let's say 275. We add this. Actually, sorry. Let's make a name. So let's say pit temp to high, and then let's make the color a very, very dark red. Okay, update this. Okay, go back. Okay, so now you can see there's annotations here. So basically whenever our data went over our desired threshold, it would leave a mark, and then it would stay there until it did it again. So we were good for a while here, and then we got neglectful, went up, we lowered the heat, came back up again, and then we never got there again because we were more careful about the amount of burners being on. Yeah, so we can also do that with probe1. So probe1 is different. Obviously this is the actual meat itself, so obviously it's going to be different from the pit data. So we can turn this annotation off, but we can add another one. We can add one for the desired internal temperature. So this is meat is ready. So this one is going to be readings probe1. So basically once it got to let's try this actually. I don't know if this works. So basically when it got to 203, the meat was ready. So we can do like a nice light green for that. I'm not sure if this equals things work. Let's find out. So we go back. Oh yeah, here. So once the meat was 203, we realized it was done, and then we removed it from the pit and let it cool on our counter. Okay, so obviously this was just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the basics of getting started with using GridDB and Grafana together to visualize your data like this. In the future, we'll probably create more blogs and videos using GridDB aggregations and more complex queries. But we hope you enjoyed this very basic video for now.